Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. How is everyone? So I wanted to, my table is shaking. Hey, Renee. I wanted to give everyone a heads up just so you know, I'm going to be in here live a lot for the next few weeks. I explained last night why I was away for a while. And I realized I did not yet unlock that live. It's on my YouTube channel because Instagram was giving me issues last night. So, just a quick recap, I was away for a while because I was working on something for you. I won't go too far into it again. I'll repost it from last night's live. But I'll be going live a lot for the next few weeks. So I can't specifically put a time because I'm on mommy duty. For those of you who don't know, I just had a baby 11 months ago. So it's no telling when he's going to wake up and cry for me. But I will be here and it will be in the evening. So if you want to be around for the live, for the discussion, we're going to have open Q&A. Just pay attention to your phone. Hit the notification bell so you will know when I am around. Thank you, Renee. All right. So tonight the topic is, why do narcissists or toxic people, toxic partners, hate answering questions? So while I was away for the past couple months, I've gotten different questions, and some people I was able to respond to. But I really want to come in here and start answering some of your questions more again. And what better way than to do it live? So if you have any questions while you're watching this as well, even if you watch the replay, just put it in the comments below. My email address is also down below. And I know when I was going through my experience with a toxic and narcissistic relationship, I felt a little bit insecure speaking up about it at first. So if you feel like you want to ask a question, but just send it to me by email, then go ahead and do that. And I'll be more than glad to answer it as well. Hello, Coach Keisha. You tried to log on to YouTube. Oh, that's weird. Okay. All right, so let's get into it. So the topic tonight is, why do narcissists or toxic partners hate answering questions? Now, just as a disclaimer, for those of you who are new to me, I use them interchangeably because I am not about you focusing on whether someone is narcissistic or not. I know that's a trendy term, and it's great that it's out there and people are learning about it and learning about different personality disorders. But the bottom line for me is, my mission is to help you to either get out of an unhealthy relationship, a toxic relationship, or once you get out, that you're not struggling and you're able to work on your healing. Okay, so I don't want you to focus on whether someone is not. If you identify them to have narcissistic traits, then great. But if you're just like, well, I'm not sure, but this is happening, toxic just means destructive to your well being. So if you've identified that this relationship is destroying you, it's unhealthy for you, that's good enough. You don't need to label it. Okay. So the first question, like I said here tonight, is, why do narcissists hate answering questions? So just to give a bit of an example, in my own experience, when I was in a 10-year toxic and narcissistic relationship, well, someone I considered to be narcissistic. And I remember towards the end of the relationship, I was practically begging for us to sit down and talk about, what is the problem? How do we resolve the issues that we have in our relationship? And it was like pulling teeth. It was like pulling teeth. And I get not everyone is the greatest at communicating. As a mental health therapist, I know my ability to communicate and explain things and analyze things might be different than others. But bottom line, what I was receiving was a block. I was getting responses like, I don't know, I'm battling demons. Mind you, this person has never been a spiritual person. So the fact that they even use that term is comical. But I started to realize that there was really no effort being made to work out the problems. So that's one way that you can tell that they were not willing to answer questions about what my concerns were, what my issues were in the relationship. Another example, a client of mine that I work with, one of the things that her husband or ex-husband would do is he would say, I'm not ready to talk about it. So she would ask questions like, why is this happening? Why are you doing this? I'm not ready to talk about it. I'm not ready to talk about it. And sometimes we can perceive those type of comments as Maybe they just need time. Let's give them space. Let's respect them. But when it comes to someone who is toxic and destructive, they're really just putting you off. Okay. And that can be very destructive to you, right? Because you're trying to work things out and the person is just blocking you with all types of different sayings, but you're asking questions, you're trying to come to a resolution, and you're being blocked. So I'm going to give you 2 reasons of why that may be happening. The first reason is when you're talking about someone who has narcissistic traits. This word, in my opinion, is not used enough when you talk about people who have narcissistic traits, toxic traits, just abusive people in general. Again, you're going to hear me use those terms interchangeably. They are delusional. That's not used enough. And I think it's so important to keep that in mind, because one of the reasons people suffer when they are dealing with these types of people is that you are dealing with them as if they are healthy, normal, that they are looking at things from a realistic perspective. And that is the worst thing you can do. It's like dealing with a toddler, expecting them to handle something like a 30-year-old when they're really only 3. Right? Someone would be like, well, why are you talking to a 3-year-old like that? Why are you expecting the 3-year-old to understand? Why are you expecting the 3-year-old to respond in a certain way? They're 3, not 30. It's the same thing with these types of people. They do not have the emotional development of a healthy adult, right? So again, they are delusional, and one of their delusions is that they believe they are above everyone else. So in their mind, when you start asking them questions about why they're behaving the way they're behaving or issues in the relationship, they may not say it, but they're perceiving it as, why are you bothering me with this? That's how they're looking at it. Why are you bothering me with this? I don't owe you any explanation. I don't owe you any answers. Why are you bothering me with this? Why? Unfortunately, I have some narcissistic people in my family. And I remember one of them, when I was still dealing with him, he would say, well, why do you want the truth? Why do you want the truth? And some of us in the family now laugh about it because now we realize how sick this person is. But he would say it sometimes, like, why are you trying to get to the truth? Basically, like, just take what I'm saying. Don't try to figure things out. Just take what I'm saying. You're bothering me, right? So that's part of their delusion. And you cannot heal from these relationships. You cannot get out of these relationships. And even once you do and heal from them, you cannot start to heal from them until you accept these people are not healthy. The reason you're still holding on, the reason you're still hoping that things can go back to the way they were, the reason you keep going back and forth is because you're dealing with them as if they are healthy and normal, and they're not. They are delusional. Okay? So true. I've experienced this type of behavior before. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So have I. And many other people. Many other people. And that's why I want us to start accepting these people for who they are, because when you do, your expectations change. Again, think of a toddler. You are not going to expect certain things from a toddler. And if you do, they will remind you, I'm a toddler. Take it from me. I have a 4-year-old. And sometimes I have to say, Nailah, relax. She's 4. Don't expect too much, right? The second reason I want to share with you why narcissists hate answering questions. They don't want peace. You are coming to them to resolve conflict. You want to talk about things. You want to pour out. You want to be vulnerable. You want to work out the problem, right? You want to ask questions, get answers, have them ask you questions, give them answers, and come to a resolution. You are expecting something from them that they don't want. You want peace. You want a healthy relationship. They don't want that. Now you messing them up. They want the conflict. They want the chaos. And they like to see you on edge. They like to see you nervous and stressed out and contacting them, trying to, well, let's talk. They love that. They love the panic. They love it all. They love to see people triggered. They love to see people on edge. I give the analogy, and I don't know where exactly I got it from, but, oh, that's my printer. I give the analogy of mice or crabs in a basket when you keep shaking it, right? When they get settled, they're able to climb out the basket. But if you keep shaking it, they'll never get a good grasp of the wicker basket to climb their way out, right? They don't want stability. They want to keep shaking that basket. They want to keep you on edge. They want to keep you stressed out. They don't want you to think clearly. They don't want you to figure things out and start putting two and two together. They don't want that. They want the conflict. They feed off of that. And that may be hard for you to understand. But again, this goes back to you accepting them for who they are. They are not normal. They are not healthy. What you want is not what they want. All right. So there will always be a discrepancy. Big facts. They choose chaos, not peace. Exactly. They do not want peace. So here you are trying to resolve a conflict and asking questions. Of course they're going to block you. They don't want what you want. They don't want peace. Okay. So one of the things I like to do is I never like to focus just on them. It's important to understand the dynamics about who they are. But if we're talking about healing, which is my purpose here, not just talking about them, but bringing it back to us, we need to figure out, okay, now that we understand a little bit about why they're behaving the way that they're behaving, now what was my role in it? This is not about blame, but we need to understand our role to know how we need to shift our role, right? So your role in that is that you were conditioned to expect resistance, right? Whether you are aware of it or not, you were conditioned to expect resistance when you ask questions. And that can do two things to you. That can either cause you to not ask any questions anymore, right? Because you are afraid of how they will respond. Or it can cause you to still ask questions because maybe you have a very bold personality. I'm someone that's outspoken. I don't really back down easily unless I feel like something's not worth it, but I'm pretty assertive. So in my case, I didn't back down, but then I would have a guard up and ready for battle, right? I would suit up, as they say. I would be ready for war because I know you're going to come with resistance, right? Both ways are not healthy. Both ways are not healthy. And one of the mistakes I made, and if you don't have my guide yet, my free ebook about mistakes to avoid in toxic relationships, and that applies to people who are in it or out of it already, go ahead and click the link in my bio or in my comments. I'll put it there to get a copy of that, because I go a little bit further into that there, where one of the mistakes I made was that I thought because I was not backing down that I was handling it properly. I thought, well, I'm not going to not ask questions. I'm not going to, hold my tongue. I'm still going to ask questions. But then I had to be ready for war. Just because you can handle war doesn't make it healthy. Just because you have the resilience, the mouth to handle the war doesn't mean it's okay. That's not what a relationship is supposed to be about, right? So either way that you approach that, what your role in it, how this has affected you, is that you are expecting resistance. And either approach, whether you hold back or you still become outspoken, but you're ready for war, either way is not healthy, right? So when we look at them, now we look at our role. Now the next question is, well, then what's the solution, right? Well, of course, we know the solution is remove yourself from these types of unhealthy relationships. But once you do that, you also want to look at your standards, because at some point you will want another relationship, right? And you don't want to continue to make the same mistakes over and over, right? So now look at your standards. You need to make sure that your standards are, I should not have to fight. I should not have to beg to communicate, right? The partner should want the relationship just as much as you, should want peace just as much as you. Okay? Begging to communicate is a non-negotiable. Okay? And that is part of the healing steps that I take with my clients, is we start to look at what are the non-negotiables. Because I think sometimes we want to be so understanding and so flexible that we mistaken that with tolerating too much. Yes, we need to be flexible with each other. We're all human. We all have flaws. We all make mistakes. But there's a difference between giving someone grace and tolerating abuse, and putting yourself with someone that you're not in alignment with. You're not in alignment with someone who doesn't want peace. You're not in alignment with someone who likes the chaos and likes to see you stressed and likes to see you on edge and is not willing to change who they are. You're not in alignment. You're in the wrong place. Okay? So we looked at the dynamics of who they are when we talk about why do they hate being questioned. We talked about the reasons why. We talked about your position. We talked about what you need to do next. I hope that this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, let me know. Wow, yes, exactly. Is people pleasing part of that? Yes, people pleasing is a part of that. That's a good question. People pleasing, definitely, because you are so concerned with wanting to make sure they're comfortable, right? You are so concerned with wanting to make sure they're comfortable. You're trying to tiptoe around them. You're just so eager to make it work, right? You have to be okay with something not working out sometimes in order for it to work out. You got to be willing to take the risk, right? And you have to be more concerned with what's good for you than to please them and to make sure that you're handling things in a certain way to make them comfortable, because they don't care about you being comfortable. They actually relish in you being uncomfortable. So yes, if you are not a people pleaser, it will be easier for you to be okay with them not being happy with how you're dealing with it. So that is something, people pleasing is something that definitely needs to be worked on in any situation, but especially when you're dealing with toxic or narcissistic people, because they also pick out people who are people pleasers. Those are easy targets for them. Now, it doesn't mean if you're not a people pleaser that they won't come after you. I don't consider myself a people pleaser, but I did change my rules for that relationship. And that's probably a topic for another day, where we have certain rules for everyone else, but when we get into a relationship, we're so desperate to keep it that we change our rules and our standards, right? So when you're setting your standards, you need to set your standards for everybody. Because one of the things I learned in my own personal experience is that when you are healing from a toxic or narcissistic romantic relationship and you start to shift your mindset, that's a big part of the healing journey. You need to also apply that mindset to everyone, to everyone. But that's a very good question. Welcome, Iris. Welcome, welcome. Are there any other questions on this topic? And for those of you who watched the replay, I realize I didn't introduce myself. Most of you, all of you here know me already, but for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Nailah Abdullah. I'm a toxic relationship coach, background in mental health therapy, and I work with women helping them to heal from toxic or narcissistic relationships. I have my YouTube family here and my Instagram family here. So I will be going live much more in the following couple weeks. So if any questions come up for you, join me live. It will be in the evening. I would say between 7:30 and 8:30. Set your notification bell if that will be easier for you. All right. If there's no other questions, thank you so much for joining, and I will see you tomorrow.